Hello and welcome to the Future of UX podcast. Today's episode is a really interesting one. So, I actually discovered today's guest, Bansi Mehta, through LinkedIn. This is where she shared a framework for designing AI features that, quickly started getting a lot of attention. And I think the framework is super interesting. So I completely understand why so many people are interested in it, want to learn from it. Because one thing I hear from many design and product teams right now, also teams that I'm working with, is that they know that they want to add AI in their products, but they often struggle with where and when and how to even start. So what problem should AI solve? What kind of AI experiences actually make sense? And how do you design something that actually creates value for users? And this is exactly what Bansi and her team have been working on. So she developed a framework called Sense, Shape, Steer. So basically 3 simple steps would help teams design AI features in a much more structured way. So in this episode, we walk through these 3 steps together and talk about how teams can go from this vague idea like, oh, maybe we should add AI at some point, or we have this user problem, to a concrete AI feature that actually solves a real user problem. So if you're currently working on AI features, maybe exploring AI in your product, or maybe if you're just curious about how teams are approaching AI product design today, I think you will get a lot out of this conversation. So I would say let's dive right in. Bansi, welcome to the Future of UX podcast.
Hey, hi Patricia. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited that you're here and that we will have a chance to talk about all things AI, especially the AI UX framework that went kind of viral that you shared a couple of weeks ago. But before we dive into it, can you briefly tell us a little bit about your background, what kind of AI products you're currently working on?
Oh, yes, of course. I started the design agency, Koru UX Design. We are going to celebrate our 15th anniversary this year. So, yes, it's been a while. It's been a while. We have really seen lots of ups and downs and change in the industry, the marketplace landscape. And you're right, the latest one being really AI, or AI rather reshaping it. Um, we are particularly focused in healthcare, but enterprise UX has been our foundation from the get-go, where for some reason, always had the bent for solving the complex, multi-layered, hairy, sticky problems. And that's what drew me to this world. And then within that, healthcare is another, it kind of adds another layer of complexity. So we are focused in, we mainly work with North America based health tech product companies, where we're working on the full spectrum of it. On one end, really the hardcore EHRs, to on another end, really the payer specific solutions, care coordination, population health management, to really some very interesting ideas as well in the compliance related space. And now more than ever with AI solving some of the problems. And that's where I feel that life has come in a full circle for me, where some of the problems that we have solved, it's like we're solving those same problems again, because problems have not changed really. But with AI, you can solve them in completely different way, right? So it's really fascinating to see both. And I have this really, find myself fortunate because I have this really nice vantage point where I can see different product teams, both on enterprise, really mature incumbent space, like those products, as well as the startups that are like, oh, we are going to disrupt this, we are going to solve it in such a unique way. How they work, how they think about it, and how more than ever, I mean, I have at least come to realize this, that yes, tech is important, how we do things is important, but team dynamics play a really big role, as much as our mindset and how we really think about certain things. So I really, really enjoy working with different product teams and seeing that how they solve problems and play my role.
That sounds super, super exciting. And I think especially AI in healthcare, I mean, we talked a bit about it before we started this interview, opens up so many opportunities. And I really love that you said we are still solving the same problems now with AI, and this opens up so many new opportunities. And I think a lot of people or designers are not aware of the opportunities or about all the new possibilities that we now have. And I think this is super exciting. You already mentioned mindset, and I think like this is kind of a mindset, right? That you think about, okay, let's resolve this problem basically. What do you think would be a good mindset for a designer nowadays to be successful or to work successfully with AI?
I would say really stick to the first principles as opposed to the process, because honestly, I mean, I've been in this field for more than 20 years. So I have really seen the era before Figma, in fact, the Photoshop era, and even before that, then the Figma, the design system, and now, right? And I do feel that I mean, when I say first principles, this doesn't change the fact that for product companies and for product teams more than ever, what's most important is that how do you go through the circle or the iteration cycle faster than ever before, because that's the GTM, right? Being able to learn fast and fail fast so that you can actually succeed sooner, as the IDEO founder says famously. That is still very, very important. That is the first principle. But how do you do it? That's what is changing dramatically. In the sense, do we have to do it using paper sketches? Do we have to do it using Figma, the mockups? Maybe, maybe not. We used to do that because doing it in code was very, very hard. But is it that hard anymore? That's changing dramatically, right? So, as long as we are really open, really vigilant in the sense that, oh, the point of doing this is to learn fast, get something in front of the people that matter, the users, the stakeholders, and it doesn't matter if it's a mock-up, a paper prototype, or an actually functioning prototype that you build using Figma Make or just Claude Code, right? I think that that is really, really important in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I totally agree, and especially the speed, what you mentioned, like everything speeding up, like things used to take like a long time, and now with AI, you can create a fully functional prototype in like a couple of hours or maybe a couple of minutes, basically. Start with assumptions and validate them throughout the process. So I think like so many things are changing, and on the one hand, like working with the AI tools, what you mentioned with like vibe coding, but on the other hand, also designing AI features and designing AI products. And I know that you have a lot of experience around, especially designing AI features and products, because this is the framework that you shared on LinkedIn that went viral and that I also found super, super interesting. Could you maybe talk a bit about the framework? Like, what was the reason that you created this step-by-step process of how to design an AI feature? Maybe was there a specific moment or like a project where you realized that teams needed something like this?
I would say in this case, really, it was literally necessity is the mother of invention. We, yes, we were getting such diverse briefs and requirements from different projects in terms of which involved AI, and it every time it's like a restart in the sense, where do you start? How do you process? Because it's very hard to really recognize the requirements when it comes in the form. For example, more often than not, when that AI feature requirement comes, it comes with a POC in the sense, oh, the engineering team has already tried something. This is the prototype. It works, but people are not able to understand it. I have actually done the audits of prototypes that are built by engineers, and but then what the intention of it or the sales team is not able to explain it. So how do you then bring the usability? And the same principles don't apply, right? This is a this is a paradigm shift. So sometimes it's the requirement of this sort. Other times we come across the requirement where it's like, oh, this is the product, it's already there, we have the users, lots of customers are already using it, but we want to make sure that we are not missing out on AI. So we really want to identify the AI opportunities. And these are the three ideas. So they would also come by saying that, oh, these are the three ideas that we already have identified. Or we want to build agents and we want to build agents. I mean, we've also come across really requirements where the requirement is that we want to build one agent every week. And this is the list of agents that we have identified. Now go figure the UX, right? But the toughest of them all is the brief where it's a brownfield kind of a product in the sense it's there. We know that there is a lot of problem in it. There are tons of UX opportunities. And now we are taking this giant leap where we say that, oh, we are going to solve the UX problems using AI. And that's where it's like you have no idea where to start because you're reimagining the workflows. You have to figure out that what are the problems really, right, within this. How do you innovate? And then while solving, you solve it with AI. But with AI, another thing that comes without fail is there is no time. Everyone is ever so impatient because there is just such a rush in terms of being the first or being ahead in the marketplace that unless and until we put our feet down and say that no, this is the process, this is how we are going to approach it, it's very hard when everyone is trying to grapple it from different angle with half-baked briefs, or where it feels like, oh, the POC is already there, it's a working thing, what else to be done? And the default response then is, oh, let's just brush it up, let's just polish it. But that's not UX for AI, right? So this is where I was like, no, we need some method to this chaos, and we need to define some sort of process that acts as a scaffolding that allows one or everyone to come together. And by everyone I mean it's not one person's responsibility. It's not just engineer or just the designer or just the product, right? But everyone needs to come together and they need to define this and kind of, in fact, I think in this case, it's more like, oh, take a pause, take a breath, and see what's happening and spend time to really think this through before we say that, yes, we are done. Because it's also, it's also the fact that so much experimentation, but such little deployment when it comes to AI projects. So that's where this started.
Okay, I feel like this makes so much sense because, as you said, it's so messy. You know, like all the different requirements. Sometimes you have something, sometimes you don't. There are a lot of ideas, and sometimes you don't have any ideas, but you want to put AI into it. So, how does the framework look like? So, if I'm a client, maybe I have a project where I feel like, you know, like the third example that you shared, I don't have any AI now. I have a lot of problems and I want to use AI, but I don't know how. So what would be the first step now when I use your framework?
Well, so the framework actually starts with three-part framework, where part one is the sense part of it, and as the name suggests, that's the step where you're really trying to get the feel of it in the sense. So yes, we feel this is the AI opportunity, but why? What does it mean, right? What problems it solves? So that's the sense part. And if I have to really summarize it, sense is where we say that, okay, we have some idea in terms of what are the UX opportunities, in the sense, what are the user problems. And then we have some ideas in terms of where we can and what we can do with AI. And where it intersects, that's the sweet spot. That's what we want to focus on, because there can be 100 things that AI can do, but is everything valuable, right? And similarly, there could be a lot of problems, but not everything can be and should be solved with AI. So you really want to find that sweet spot where the value is high, so that, because ultimately you want your users to adapt. And I've seen that in healthcare, product teams, engineering, even when selling the buyer, they can all get very excited. But for user, it's just another tool. I mean, it's just tech behind the scene. They don't care whether it's done with AI, without AI, right? So as designers, it's still our job to represent users while keeping in mind that, yes, I mean, of course, every business wants to take advantage of the opportunity that are now present, but how do we bring them together? So we still start with the good old research. As I said earlier, the time is our enemy in this case, because we can't say that, oh, we are going to start with research and until then we are not going to talk about AI. So we start with let's get together and at least define that who is the user, what is the problem that we know of, what is the context for that user, right? So this is something that we all know of, all do it day in, day out, but it's like laying it out. And that's why I said that take a pause, take a breath, open the fig board, lay it all out, and then compare it with, okay, from AI perspective, what do we feel? What are the opportunities here? And then really break it down, because it's one thing to say that, oh, we can build a Copilot, or we can have agentic AI here, right? Or we can have an AI generated summary or suggestion here. But there is more to it than that, in the sense, so what model we are going to use, because the availability or unavailability of model, or how expensive it is versus how easily available it is, right? All of these things are very, very important. With MCP and the whole AI workflow, it's not just the model as well, right? What kind of what data it will have access to versus not have. Like, if we are we talking of RAG? If yes, then what is that RAG made of, right? Would it have access to our existing product? Would it have access to users' emails as well? What not, right? Because answer to each one of these kind of tells us that where we really need to navigate around it with keeping the constraints in mind, versus where we actually have access and we can actually use it and don't have to hold ourselves back, right? So sense is about kind of unpacking it and saying that let's look at it from all perspective, in the sense, what is the AI opportunity and what does it mean, right? The access to data, the model, if we are saying Copilot, why? If we are saying agentic, why? If are we saying ambient? Is it a combination of things? And risk and guardrails, right? I mean, this is the time we also talk about it, because without that, it's so easy to get fixated on the new shiny thing and build something. But really, what is the boundary, in the sense, if AI is wrong, what is the consequences? And yes, sometimes the consequences can be fatal, but other times, even if it is like, oh, this is not a life and death situation, it could also be the trust and mistrust situation, right? And users are only going to give a new feature a chance in terms of how much they trust and how much they will be tolerant towards it. So would it be that if 80% is our success criteria, that if 80% of time it comes with the right answer, then users would kind of adapt and find it valuable? Or in certain cases, it could be really 99%, right? And if we set the expectation right, in certain cases, it could be right, oh, this is the very basic thing the AI can do here as a starting point. And we are surprised that people still find it valuable. But it's really about having that dialogue, really going through that process, discussing it, laying it all out.
Yeah, I really love that you also emphasize that you start on real problems that you map out and then see basically step by step which of these problems can be solved with AI, and then also basically have a look at which data do you already have, right? I know that also from my clients, sometimes we just don't have the data, or the data is super messy, so we can't really use it. So we would actually need to have like a certain team restructuring the data that we can properly use it. Or we don't get the data, as you mentioned. We would need like maybe the email addresses from users, or we need certain content that we don't have access to. So I think this is also super important, going away from this shiny idea to what is actually feasible, which is sometimes not that nice anymore, but it helps you to build the right thing. So I really love that. What would you say, like especially this first step, when you're sitting there as the designer, who else should be in the room basically going through that exercise?
I would say definitely the product team, as well as actually engineering, because what engineers know of and can share, sometimes the product and design team, they have no idea. In the sense, like this early conversation itself, it involves the access to data, talking about model, right, the capability, all of these things. Sometimes we also need them from the perspective because they may have already done some sort of a POC, a proof of concept on that. Then we want to learn, right, that what have they tried and how it works, all of these things. So I would say engineering for sure, and product and design, if all of them, anyone can drive. I mean, product can drive, design can drive, that's fine, as long as everyone is there.
And another question, because so you mentioned also a little bit the outcome. Is this the step where you would already decide on you want an agentic system or you want a co-pilot, or would this be that something that you do a little bit later on,
So
would you
this
say?
is where we have some high level idea, in the sense that what is it that we are going to consider in terms of modality based on what opportunities that we see, right? And by opportunities, it also means that, oh, this is the ground truth that we have. And hence we are going to actually really use that as the data set for the agentic AI. We also, for example, know that, oh, actually in this workflow it can be a companion for the user. Then you more or less know that this is kind of a co-pilot experience, right? So at high level, yes, I would say that some idea around that, but still being open about it, because once you get into the shape part of it, which is where you are actually ideating and thinking that what exactly it's going to be, we might have to revisit. So yeah.
I think that that makes sense. Like iterating on the way, being open to maybe adjust a bit. What would you say, like, how do you choose if something is a good co-pilot solution or rather more automated and agentic? What would you recommend?
So I think that's where really understanding who are the users and what problem the AI can solve here also tells you that, and then combined with the risks and guardrail, right? So when you put all of these together, it kind of gives you an idea in the sense that, one, like some of the things are actually given in the sense, if it's knowledge work, in the sense it's complex, then you know that agentic will work really well, which is intent based, right? Versus certain things where we know that no, human in the loop is very very important because of regulations, the liability, all of these things, or the risk being just too high for AI to do any sort the final decision making. There, then we know that, oh, and AI that is more suggestive or recommending or really helping in terms of processing things or synthesizing things and presenting it in the right way so that the human can actually make an informed decision in the end, that becomes kind of a go-to, right? So depending on, one, what is the opportunity can be really as small as, for example, we also work in the logistics and automation space. Just knowing the complex automations that are being worked upon, just an AI that summarizes it, saying that, oh, this automation has what 200 steps and this is what it does, can also be immensely valuable. It's not a big, bold AI opportunity, but nonetheless, it helps user in certain way, right? Similarly, for oftentimes, I mean, in fact, this is one of the most common use cases that I've come across, where anyone who is trying out, especially enterprise products, for AI opportunities will find documentation or documentation agent as one opportunity. And as, in fact, I mean, to me now, it almost sounds cliche, but as cliche it is, it's actually very useful. It works. Like instead of going through the tons of documentation and help to find something that you're looking for, the documentation agent works really, really well, right? So it's not all dark or it's not all in gray area. There are certain things that you feel more confident about, where you feel that, oh, yes, this is very obvious, we should do this, versus certain things where we are like, no, we'll figure it out as we go. And again, because it's not just one discipline driving it or doing it, but three, to really balance the views and fill into each other's blind spot. More or less, you do come out with something that is on track in the right direction.
Nice. Okay. I mean, yeah, makes total sense. Also, like adjusting a little bit on the way and then seeing, like, you know, where things actually lead you all through testing and everything. So, what would be the next step now in our framework? So, we defined problem, we made sure that we have the data set up. We thought, okay, maybe it's an agentic approach, but we are not 100% sure yet. Let's come up with an example. So imagine that we are, working for a recipe app. They don't have any AI features yet. They're coming up with the problem that it's super difficult to create recipes with leftovers. Users don't really know, so they're entering in the search like, oh, tomatoes and peppers, and then they are getting recipes with tomatoes and peppers, but they don't have the rest of the ingredients. So they're missing, I don't know, like lettuce or, I don't know, pork or something like that. So this is a huge problem. And then users are switching to other competitor tools. But we actually have the ability, or maybe have the content, have the data to create our own recipes on demand, maybe. So the idea is now maybe an agentic approach where the agent actually takes over, gathers the information in the background, hopefully, and then creates something. But we are still not sure yet. This is our first idea and the first step. So what would we do next as a design team?
Right. So this is actually a very good example, because all of us can agree on this, and it is a real problem that sometimes you have some ingredients but don't know what to make with it, right? So let's say if we go with that as, yes, this is the problem we are trying to solve. Now, depending on, again, I feel, again, this is a very good example to say that, because the solution will vary greatly in terms of, do you have a smart fridge that kind of tells you what's in the fridge, right? Then it's one kind of data point, versus do we say that, oh, you can actually take a picture and upload that, so you don't have to describe the whole thing. But you do run into problem then to say that, oh, actually the models that actually read images and then kind of understand what's in it is expensive. So is it going to scale? Are we going to give it out as a free offering versus a paid one only to premium users, right? What kind of context window will our AI solution will have, in the sense that, would it learn over the period of time that, oh, actually my husband doesn't like tomatoes at all, so I can't make anything with tomatoes in it, right? Or that, oh, what weather it is and where I live, those kind of things. So answer to those kind of shapes how we are going to approach the solution. So yeah.
So in this next step, we would basically think about, well, also a little bit of the business, right? If I got you right. So we think about, do we want to make money? How expensive are the different solutions? What kind of services do we offer? And I really like that you mentioned, like, yeah, that's the thing. If you upload an image, which is like the first idea that a lot of designers or engineers as well, like people usually have, this is expensive, so we need to charge for it. Or is the feature enough? I would say that people are subscribing longer to the service in general. So I think this is super valuable. So I would say in that case, we would decide it's a premium feature that you can upload images. This is premium. The other things are freemium, I would say. But if you want to take a picture, but we definitely want to work on it, because we know our users that they love to take pictures. Most of our users don't have smart fridges. They could maybe take a picture of their whole fridge, but usually I would say we assume that they place the ingredients that they have on the counter, then take a picture, and then expect the service to create a recipe for them or recommend something.
Yep. So that's where, Patricia, as you described it, right, there may or may not be screens or interface involved, and hence the shape part of it. One of the part that we really emphasize, and I have seen that has worked really well, is user journey, but with a twist, where more emphasis on storyboarding than really just pure user journey. Because and it's a user journey or sorry, storyboard with multiple lanes, where on one lane we are really thinking that, okay, who is the user and what are they doing? And that kind of keeps our focus on that, who the user is, right? And what is the problem we are trying to solve for them, and how would they go from A to B? And then say that, okay, out of this journey, which part AI will actually come in versus AI is not present because there is nothing to be done here with regards to AI, right? So that storyboarding, and that storyboarding again may or may not involve any sort of screenshots. So it really allows designers to move away from Figma mockups and screens. By all means, if there is a screen involved, have it, but think more from really the good old sketchbook or your storyboard, right? Where you think that what's happening in this case, where we say that, okay, this is the user in the evening, has come back from work and now really thinking that what do I make for dinner? So that becomes your narrative. That's where you start, right? And that's where you say that, oh, then they'll take a picture, is where now they have some sort of a device or screen involved, right? And then you say that, okay, now how AI will respond? Is it within our portal? Is it a portal that we have? It's an app we have. Are we going to create a chatbot within the app? Then what will be the experience, right? So one part of it is really the storyboarding, and another part of it really then creating the AI touch points to say that in this journey, now really let's say that what mode of AI is involved at what point in time, right? Is it ambient, that's constantly learning in the background? But I don't think so that's the case in this one. So is it more intent based, where only when user tells it to do something, which is, oh, here are the ingredients, what do I make, it does it? Or we are seeing the opportunity to say that, actually, you know what, this user every day comes home around this time, or there's a home automation system and our app works with it, right? Then we know that the moment they actually unlock the home is the right time to actually say that, so what do we want to make for dinner tonight, and start with that. So that's where the opportunity, the tension actually comes, in the sense, do we want to go after this? Not, if we do this, then how the solution would work. But that AI touch point in that workflow also is very, very important in this whole process, because that actually becomes the spec for AI prototyping. So in this sense shaped steer, it's not really, we do want to learn from users, of course. I mean, everything that we got excited in the sense, this is the idea, and this is what we are going to build, is still assumption, right? And we all as designers know that it's no, I mean, hypothesis is only hypothesis till it is proven. So how do we build something that's not just Figma mockups, is where having an engineer on the team, or sometimes designers are also savvy, and some tools, like for example, a simple workflow in Annotate is not that hard to build, or a simple prototype where you actually hook up the model in the background is not that hard to build. But with that, when you test, the prototype is so much richer compared to the Figma mockups, the static Figma mockups, no matter how much you try to stimulate, right? So the AI workflow, the AI touch points becomes the input for the team, whoever is going to build the AI prototype, to say that, if not the full workflow, can we do one small use case from it and try it for real, and then test it with amongst ourselves, because prototype is also very revealing from the perspective that it also tests that what we thought is possible versus is it actually possible, right? So, and we tried actually the whole sense-shaped steer for the first time in our internal AI hackathon. We had like 6 teams, and every team would have mix of senior designers, junior designers, front-end developers. And one of the teams, they had a very tricky brief. They were to create something that's a music DJ using AI. And they pivot the whole idea in terms of creating a baby monitor that is AI powered. And one of the key questions for them was that, is there a model that understands the infant sound? and can differentiate between is it crying or just cooing, right? And then based on that, play music or warn the parent that, oh, yeah, they need you. So they and this AI hackathon was really 2 days. So from idea to actually prototype, in 4 hours, they actually created the prototype where the camera would recognize the baby based on the sound it makes, would actually trigger either this workflow, which is call the parent, or play the music, and they were able to demonstrate it. That's so gratifying as opposed to just thinking that, oh, this is an idea and we think it's going to work. And how much they can iterate in those 4 hours, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I actually want the prototype because I had a baby last year, so I think it would be super nice. I would love that. And this is so innovative, right? Because like we have the basic baby monitor, like I don't know, the brand, but it's so basic. And I'm wondering, like, wouldn't it be exciting to rethink those problems? What you mentioned earlier. Yeah, a baby is crying and then you come and get and cuddle and feed and whatever. But what if the AI could help you a bit of like analyzing? I think this is fascinating. We thought the problem is solved. Check. No, it's not solved. Right? Like we could make this so much better, help the parents to understand the baby better, or soothe the baby a little bit, until the parent arrives. Sometimes it takes like 60 seconds or so until like you arrived, you get upstairs or so. So I love that, like rethinking those problems. I'm the first customer. I would love that. So nice. Yeah, that's really cool. That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I think like there are actually two things where I would like to dive deeper. So the first is like the third step, pretty much, where we zoom out, we talk, we have a look at the whole journey. So a little bit like service design, we think of like where in this journey actually makes sense. And in our example, maybe we think, oh, this is interesting. In our journey, we find out that the leftovers are especially interesting for lunch situations because for lunch, people don't go to the supermarket. For dinner, maybe after work, they have more time, but for lunch, they don't have time to go to the supermarket. So they need to cook something with the ingredients they're having at home. Okay, this is an interesting thought, I would say, that we are having, just looking at the journey. And then we are thinking, maybe we can integrate the shopping lists from the users and predict the ingredients or the leftover ingredients, matching it with the last cooked meals. So we think, interesting, maybe we can send them at 11 a.m. A reminder, oh, I prepared a recipe for you based on the probable leftover or the possible leftovers that you have. We want to build that now. What would you say? We want to build this now and test that now. And we have a lot of problems, a lot of problems that we would like to solve. Also a lot of questions that we are not sure of, like, do users actually integrate their shopping list? Do we get access to it? Maybe it's connected to the app. Is that working? Is the prediction working? Or are people also like cooking a lot of things on the side? So is it not matching? What would you say if we want to build that prototype now with all the questions and hopefully some opportunities? How should we do that now? What would you recommend?
So that's where the journey map, right? And I mean, that's the thing. How you now brought this different insight changes the whole thing. In the sense, this is an afternoon situation, and hence time is of essence, right? And what you have is what you want to work with. It's not that you're now relaxing. End of the day, you can source a few things and really cook a nice meal, right? So that changes a bit of the thing. And also, where we say that, oh, we are actually going to already prepare a recipe and then say that this is what you could make, is where when you prototype, you realize that, oh, actually, one, what is the cost of it, in the sense already preparing something and then recommending it, right? It's not cheap. It's not free to actually do that. And hence, that's where creative solutioning start happening, where we say that, can we achieve this effect without overdoing it? Could it be just a small nudge? That's number one, right? And that's where you start thinking that, oh, in which case do we ask people to actually, once they make something, upload a picture, so that that way we also learn that they made it or not made it, right? That kind of
Mhm.
a thing. So that's where the conversation happens, and this level of deliberation and discussion happens even when there is AI involved. So some part of it is actually technical, right? To say, I have actually seen prototypes where designers get so excited and they almost think that, oh, AI can do anything, where in one workflow, very, I would say, I thought it just felt very natural for them to say that AI will do the validation and tell that, oh, you have actually not filled the description here. And I was like, this is something you can do with front end JavaScript validation, browser validation. You don't need AI for that, right? But it's so easy to almost feel that way, that, oh, AI can now do everything is AI. And as opposed to, there are cheaper ways of doing it. So yes, we do that, and then from that we can actually define that, let's try it out in the sense which model will understand the image and how well it understands, right? So we say that, okay, let's take 10 very different kind of images, which is some which are very straightforward, but some which are hard to recognize, might have some exotic things, or very, I would say, cuisine specific ingredient which are not very easily available. And if those are the images, can the model still accurately predict what are the ingredients in that image, and then based on that suggest something, right? Second thing, based on our database in terms of the recipe book that we have. And again, that's the beauty of AI. It's not really the data set that you feed, then it, I mean, that's just the basis of it, right? Then you can solve 100 or 1,000 problems with that set of 10. Can it actually give suggestions which are still adhering to the time limit, in the sense, whatever, 15 minutes, 20 minutes that we say, but what are those suggestions? And when we actually show it to users who would have those pictures, like for example, let's say I'm Indian, and let's say if I, for my lunch, I eat rice and pulses or curry, would it give me something that is to my taste, or I would I like that for my lunch? Or I would say that, actually, you know what, I don't eat that for lunch, that's very much for dinner. So that's where you also start thinking about the usefulness of the solution that that you are creating, and not only the technicality, but also technicality also, and not just that, oh, this sounds really good, and yes, users want it, but how are we going to build it? What are going to be the consequences of building it, right? So doing both these things simultaneously and still going from beginning to end is the very purpose of this process.
I honestly really love that because everything that you just explained and shared also shows how or why it's so important to design with or to have human designers and don't leave everything to AI. Right now, there are so many discussions of AI is so good and designers will become obsolete. And I mean, AI is good and some designers will definitely become obsolete. But I think everything that you just shared shows how important it is to have this human in the loop thinking, working together with AI and rethinking everything, questioning everything, thinking about the new problems, zooming out, zooming in, trying, testing. And this is very difficult for an AI to do at this level, where you
Yep.
basically question everything and then come up with an amazing idea and not this, okay, we have a Copilot where, the user writes something and then you get a recipe, but really think about the steps and also how to approach this and how the interaction works. So I think this is fascinating for me. Yeah.
Precisely,
And yeah.
precisely. I actually say this a lot, Patricia, to our designers or anyone whom I come across, that, okay, now we all know that with AI, you can do things much faster. Instead of only going after speed, can we also take up a challenge to raise the bar, in the sense to really do the things that we were not able to do before because of time constraint, or because the very number of people that we have in the team, right? Can we really elevate the quality of solution that we are building as opposed to only doing it faster?
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's so much room for opportunities, especially for AI products, or for, I think, for all products. We think about accessibility, we're thinking about different users, about different needs, about personalization, about also, I would say, like reducing the overwhelm on focusing on what's essential, like predicting behavior, adaptive interfaces, generative UI, like fascinating. This is all like super fascinating for me to really rethink experiences and how UX is changing and evolving, as what you just mentioned, going for quality. Going for quality. Speed is great, but really going for quality. And I think this is a good mindset that every designer should definitely use as a little motivation. I mean, at least this is for me motivation, to think about that. We don't need to only focus on speed, but also on quality. The second thing that you mentioned earlier that I want to talk a bit about is the hackathon that you mentioned. I think this is super interesting. Tell me a bit about why you did that, why you think it's important, and how you started that in your company or your agency.
So I always like to do a little bit of mass experimentation, and there was another thing in this whole thing. We are a remote company, so we meet twice a year, where for 2 weeks we are all in one place working from a co-working space. And I was like, this is a fantastic opportunity, because of course we all need to upskill ourselves, but it can't be just theory, in the sense where there are just series of sessions and people learn. What better than actually getting your hands dirty, right? So that's that was the motivation behind actually doing AI hackathon. And I also feel that because every project is different and the team composition is different, it's very hard to tell that, oh, something worked or did not work because of, there are so many parameters to conclude, right? But when
Mhm.
you, for example, in this case, we had 6 teams, each one consisting of 5 to 6 people, and everyone had a unique brief, but similar kind of brief. Then when you see every phase unfold, that, oh, how did they do sense, versus from sense based on feedback, how did they do shape, what worked, what did not work, how fast they were able to iterate. It's very, very revealing. It's really telling. And in fact, that was our first test. Based on that, then we did a very nice debriefing. We updated some of the things that we had initially, and evolved it. And because everyone did it themselves, it was amazing. It was fascinating for me to see that how then, as different individuals went back to their own projects, they carved out opportunity, and that every opportunity was different. And they were like, oh, what part of this framework we can apply? And then when I saw that, even the client teams got very, very excited, the product teams, engineering teams, even AI engineers, data engineers, we got them also to talk and participate, which was a big, big deal for me. So I was like, this is going somewhere. And that's how it evolved.
I really love that. I think this is what a lot of design teams need to, or tech teams need to do, product teams need to do now. Just get their hands dirty, as you said. Try things out, experiment, and also learn from each other. Work together with the engineers, vibe code something, think about an idea, talk, like really start those discussions. So I think this is super, super interesting. Also, a great tip maybe for design teams who are want to implement AI in their workflows, think about how they can actually use it, or think about how could we design AI features. What would you say, or what kind of tips would you give designers or product teams right now to really level up and get ready for what's ahead of us, which is definitely a crazy journey probably with AI?
Well, I would say that, and this is something that I had actually heard on one of the podcasts, and that was about, you can only think of the possibilities that AI creates and how to apply that once there is a basic level of AI literacy. And I think that's a learning curve, but at the same time, everybody from designers to leadership, this is a non-negotiable thing. So I would say that take out time. Don't think that, oh, this is basic, but I actually encouraged the team. We, in the same co-working weeks, we did something called lightning talk, and we kind of stacked it up in a way where every person in the team, 2 times a day, they'll do 10-minute lightning talk. And the topics were really like this: the memory or the hallucination, why, what is the LLM, or what is the open source versus the closed model, the advantages and disadvantages of like really basic topics, but something that will together build the AI literacy for all of us, and not directly jumping into a Copilot or agentic and how do we orchestrate agents and build the UX for agent. Because without really learning the basic building blocks, it's really hard for us to imagine. Then designers really come out as how that happened, right? Where, oh, for validation also we are using AI. That no, we need certain level of literacy and competency in AI for us to be very effective. So I would say that that's an investment that everyone should consciously make.
What would you say? What are some resources that you would recommend for designers to dive into, or if they want to build their AI literacy?
Well, I would say YouTube is amazing resource. That's number
I agree.
one. I literally did that. I went through a few videos, and then every time I would hear a term that I did not know what it meant, I would make a note of it, and then I will search for it and learn. And that's how I kind of learned the whole picture. Because I mean, by education, I am a computer. I did computer engineering, but I'm a designer. I don't code anymore, so I don't know a lot of stuff. And at the same time, some of the thought leaders, they are inviting really good conversations. I would say podcast is another such medium. Like I personally follow Lenny and Lenny's podcast. So that's one of my favorites. I think you have really nice curated list and a lot of nice conversation happening around AI on this podcast. So listening to some of the podcast, picking up on those words, how different people are talking about the same concept from different perspective, all of that is immensely helpful in building the base.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you mentioned something super important, which is hearing like basically different perspectives. Because I think right now there's not this like one guru who has figured it out and knows everything. But what's helpful for me also is to keep sane and keep up to date, like both, is to talk with a lot of people. I mean, in the podcast, but also be on LinkedIn, and have all those different voices sharing their take. And it's not like this is 100% true. Also, like what we are sharing, like this is work in progress. We're sharing our perspective and opinion, but like getting this picture by, listening to this and that, and then rethinking our own thoughts and processes. This is super helpful also for me. So can definitely emphasize or underline what you mentioned. I think is super important also for designers, whatever I would say like maturity level you have, because we right now all need to relearn a little bit. If you're a senior, if you lead, if you're junior, we are all constantly need to learn and rethink our processes. The process that you shared is very different than the traditional design process.
Yeah.
We need to think about that. This is not the traditional design process that we used for, it was a bit messy still, but this is super different. And it's super different for a reason, because the traditional design process doesn't make a lot of sense here in this case. So yeah,
Exactly.
fascinating. Bansi, I think we could go on for hours. I really loved your take and all the insights you shared, and especially that you don't gatekeep. You share the framework that we dove into in basically publicly, right? Like we will link it in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about it, try it out yourself, maybe try it with your team, share it with your team, colleagues. You can find it for free in the show notes. And if you have questions, I'm pretty sure you can also reach out to Bansi ask questions, reach out. I know that you're also offering a 5-week AI sprint for companies, right? Like if you want a little bit more guidance, so you can also learn more about it, we will link it in the show notes as well. And then, yeah, Bansi, I would say thank you so much for being here. I really, really loved our conversation. And yeah, hopefully hear you soon.
Thank you so much, Patricia. It was a pleasure.
Perfect. Thank you.